Hey guys, in today's episode, I go over my new 1993 ESP M2 Custom and my 1991 ESP Horizon Custom. Stay tuned. What is up, you guys? It's your boy Luis Torres, and finally, the two ESPs that I purchased are both in, so I could finally make a video featuring the two. So, huge shout out to Nick Williams and to CALE, who are the two absolutely amazing guitarists that sold me these two ESPs. So, you guys know me. I've been a huge ESP fan since the late 80s and have owned quite a number of them. To me, they're just the guitars that I literally pin every other guitar against. So when I ended up getting that Legator, whatever, I literally compared it to my ESPs, which is really bad because if you've held an ESP, then you already know how incredible they are. I'm talking about ESPs from the 80s and the early 90s. To me, that is the golden era for ESP, along with currently being the second phase of the golden era for ESP with regard to their custom guitars. So, LTD, you're not included in this, but, I know there are tons of incredible 1000 series LTDs that are just as incredible as ESPs. So with these guitars, funny enough, so Nick Williams, who watches my channel, that's my boy, we chat like every other day, and he ends up finding this ESP. He was looking for an ESP M2, and he would be like, hey, listen, I found this ESP M2. What do you think? So he'd send me the link, and I'm like, nah, they want too much for what they're offering because, there'll be a split right down the back, and I'm just like, dude, that's, it's just, or it had the wrong bridge. For me, it's really important to have a Sinclair ESP bridge. To me, that's everything. So it would end up being, that they switched it out for a Floyd Rose special, which is just kind of cheaping it out. And I was just like, nah, they want too much for that guitar because you're going to sell that bridge for $100 and now you have to try to find an ESP bridge and that's going to cost you $350 if you ever find one. So he finally came across this 1993 ESP M2 Custom and I'm like, dude, that guitar is golden. So of course I'm hugely jealous. He ends up getting it. It arrives and he's like, what is up with this humbucker single coil humbucker layout? The single coil in the middle is driving me crazy. And it has EMG pickups. And, so I'm just like, I remember having HSH guitars and I would literally take the single coil and just tighten them to the point where they weren't in the way at all. Apparently these EMGs are really tall and they are totally in the way. So he eventually, and dude, they're heavy. If you've had an ESP M2 bolt on, like to me, those weigh like a pound. The customs weigh like 13 pounds. They really don't, but they're heavy guitars. And he's like, and what's up with this guitar being so heavy? I'm like, that's how they are. And eventually he's like, listen, I think I'm going to unload it. I'm like, no, don't do it yet. Give me a little bit. And eventually was just like, you still want it? I'm like, yes. And lo and behold, it came in. So the great thing about this guitar, aside from it being red and neck through body, for me is the gold hardware. To me, it just, anything with red and gold just looks amazing. So here are the 3 pickups. So they're all EMGs. I don't know what they are. I haven't taken them off. I put new strings on it and that was about it. But the one catch, and this is one thing that you won't find, they're kind of rare, is a flame maple top. Not only is it a flame maple top, but it's about ½ an inch thick. You know, and for the most part, listen, and I have a Paul Reed Smith Custom 22 Leprechaun Tooth. That's a $5,000 guitar. I didn't spend $5,000, but that's a $5,000 guitar all day. Dude, the thing has 1/4 of an inch of maple. So this thing, whoever ordered it, basically said, I want a flame maple top, but I don't want a veneer. I also don't want it to be 1/4 of an inch thick. I want it to be ½ an inch. So it's, I mean, throughout, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's crazy. Oh, and then here's another thing is it actually has that hidden, you know, and I know that they have them now, but it's just recessed the input. So you just, you know, and it's literally almost tucked away, which is great. It's 24 frets. And sounds absolutely incredible. I mean, it feels like my 2 other M2 Customs, and this one's just prettier. It's just prettier. That's all it is. So let me find a pick. So I'm actually going to be using. Listen, if you guys want something that you can use at home that is tube driven, get the Moore tube engine. It's 20 watts. It's loud. If you're just going to play at home, or even if you have a small rehearsal space, you're going to do great with that. Just make sure you plug it into a 212 or 412 because it'll drive it really hard, which is great. You know, this is, and I actually had the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 170 and paid $400 for it because it's $399. That's $299. And although the Power Stage 170 is 170 watts, that is 170 at 4 ohms. So if you're going to be using it at 8 ohm, you got to cut that number in half. It's 85 watts, but it's 85 watts of solid state. And if you compare a solid state 50 watt amp to a tube 50 watt, dude, the tube is just going to just blow you completely out of the water. So this 20 watt tube, and even though it just uses EL84s, and again, it's a correction because in my last video I kept saying 6v6. They're actually EL84s, so they're just the smaller EL34s. They just don't push out as much power as the larger EL34s or E34Ls, which I think I have in one of my rectifiers. And I'm using my KSR series. That's it. It's literally guitar into the series into the Moore tube engine, and miking it through the mixer. And you guys can have a listen. And next up is going to be the ESP Horizon Custom that I got. Okay, so there is my 1993 ESP M2 Custom, and another thing is that it actually has a matching flame headstock, but I think it's got to be, I don't know, if I had to guess, maybe 1/8 of an inch. I would assume it's probably as thick as that would be. Maybe it's veneer, I don't know. But someone spent a lot to get this thing in the first place back in 1993. So let's switch over to the 1991 ESP Horizon Custom. So with this one I got from CALE out in California, and he actually had it on eBay. And interestingly enough, like I had reached out to him like, hey, you know, would you consider lowering the price? And at the time he was just like, no, you know. And to me, it's just, you know, I don't know. Like I have to always factor in the fact that I have a lot of guitars. So it's just like, okay, so I'm not going to end up getting that ESP. And I let things go by, you know, all the time. It's just one of those things, you know, I don't know, you buy low, you sell high. So I have that mindset of trying to get a fair deal. And he was fair without question. Like, you know, his price range was right on point. And I was just like, let me hold off for a bit. Let me see if I can get anything else. Ended up getting the Moore tube engine, and I was psyched about that. And about a week or so had gone by, and I still noticed it on eBay. And I was just, you know, I was like, let me just reach out to him again and just see, you know, it's been a week, you know, I don't know if anyone's been like, hey, for the most part, everyone always tries to lowball, right? Hey, I'll give you $500 for that. And, you know, whatever. You sit back and you're just like, don't waste my time if you're going to go that low. So, and that, you know, that's happened to me tons of times. And so I know, I'm sure he has. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, would you consider lowering the price from where you are for a sale today? And he discounted it a little bit. And just as I was about to pull the trigger, I looked at the details, and he was selling it with a gig bag, and he was shipping it from California. And I was like, dude, that thing's gonna arrive smashed and into 1,000 pieces. And I was just like, better that you sell it locally. This is what I'm thinking in my head. Better that you sell it locally. That way someone actually receives it intact, and it's a guitar that's nearly 30 years old and will continue for another 20 years. And I was just like, dude, you have it, you're selling it with a gig bag. I kind of feel like it won't get from California to New York in the condition that it's currently in, you know, especially with all this COVID going on, everyone buying online, you know, people are just, you know, it's just funny how many people are now running into issues where they're getting packages and literally things are just shattered. So I was just like, hey, you know, if you can sell it with a hard case, I'll buy it. And he's like, consider it done. And I'm like, let's do it. Went ahead, bought it, and it arrived perfectly intact, which is great. He had it tuned to E. I put new strings on it, lowered it down to C sharp standard. So aside from the gorgeous fuchsia pink that it also has a flame maple top. This is about 1/4 of an inch, but it's 1/4 of an inch. And keep in mind that, you know, let me try to angle it this way. It's 1/4 of an inch from here, because remember, it's actually a sculpted body. So this drops, you know, probably close to 1/4 of an inch. So it probably started out at close to 1/2 an inch. The sides are about 1/4 of an inch, and then it just rises from there. But it's just a gorgeous maple top. Again, it's a custom, so it's going to be neck through body. This is a pre-Jackson lawsuit. So funny enough, every once in a while, I'll get someone that catches one of my videos with one of my ESPs that has the pre-Jackson headstock. And they're like, son, are you crazy? Did you just take a Jackson and throw an ESP sticker on there? I'm like, no, it's an ESP. It's just before Jackson threatened ESP in the 80s, actually in the 90s, to sue them for copyright infringement because they had a patent on this shape headstock, and ESP had to change it over to this one. So, but you can see the similarity. They're like, Jackson, we're going to go ahead and play around with you guys, and literally we're going to shave it back instead of forward. So it's just interesting how they did that. And, you know, they actually have an iconic headstock. But this is, for me, the epitome of the ESP golden era, which is any ESP custom, whether it's a Horizon or an M2 or an M1, with the original pre-Jackson lawsuit headstock and reverse. To me, that's everything. So I actually have a 1986 ESP Mirage, which is my snakeskin, which has the Jackson headstock, but it's pointing down just like a normal Jackson headstock would, and this is just the opposite. So let me go ahead and run it out of my Moore tube engine and my KSR series. Oh, and here's the one thing that a few people have asked, because it actually has 3 pots. So this is the pickup selector, 1 tone knob, and 2 volume. So you can decide which one you want to swell in, and that's up to you, but it has 2 volume knobs. Funny enough, I don't think I've ever had a guitar with 3 knobs. This is my 1996 ESP Horizon Custom, and this one has just 2 knobs, which is interesting, and it has the ESP teardrop headstock instead of the typical ESP headstock or the reverse Jackson. That one just hangs on my wall. So where's my pick? Where's my pick? It's on the other. It's in my pocket. All right, let me switch over. I was, keep in mind that these pickups are 29 years old, so I'm just trying to hit pinch harmonics to hear how it sounds. I have to just figure out what pickups to replace these with. But listen, you can't knock it for a guitar that is nearly 30 years old and still looks great. And the only exception is it just has, I guess at some point, that, you know, delaminated at some point, and he just kind of painted it white, which is fine. They did a great job in putting it back in. It's just not the same color, so I have to just try to get some kind of yellowish, you know, that way the white, I mean, it just naturally stains throughout the years. So, all right, so those are my 2 new guitars. And yes, they were expensive. That's the only thing. It's like ESP prices have just gone through the roof over the last 2 years, which is great if you bought one 3 years ago. Terrible if you are buying them now. Wah, wah, but it's okay. So guys, if you ever get the chance to buy yourself an ESP from the late 80s or early 90s, I guarantee that you're going to absolutely love it, unless you're Nick Williams. In that case, make sure you get an ESP that doesn't have a single coil between the 2 humbuckers, because they will be in the way. Funny enough, I probably, you know, it took me like 2 days to get used to that center EMG and just hitting it. So I have to figure out if I'm going to switch those out, but I actually like it with the EMG. So, you know me, I ripped out all of my EMGs from all of my guitars and just have that one. So I may just keep it there. So guys, thank you so much for watching. You guys are the absolute best. And as usual, subscribe and I'll talk to you guys soon.